Hi everyone, welcome to this video on how to create and customize ports in the Angular diagram component. Ports are special connection points on a node, enabling connections to specific points. In this video, I am going to show you how to create and add ports to nodes programmatically and dynamically. You will see how to update and remove ports at runtime, add multiple ports, customize the port appearance and position, and draw connectors. First, I open an Angular application to which I have added a diagram component with a node. To see how to integrate the diagram component into an Angular application, please check the Getting Started video linked in the card above and the description below. Let me run this application using the command ngserve. The diagram canvas renders with a single node. Now I am going to show you how to create a port programmatically. I open the app component TS file and define the port settings variable of type PointPortModel. This model class is imported from the Syncfusion EJ2 Angular Diagrams package. I set the ID to port 1 and the offset property x value to 1 and y value to 0.5. Here, I can also change the port visibility. Let's see the different port visibility options available. The diagram provides 4 options: hover, hidden, connect, and visible. The port is always displayed in the hover mode, while in the hidden mode, it remains invisible. In the default connect mode, the port becomes visible when the mouse hovers over a node. Alternatively, the port is shown when a connection endpoint is dragged over a node in the visible mode. I add the visibility property. I set the option to visible in order to display the port always on the node. I assign this port settings variable to the ports property of the diagram component. You can see the port is added to the node. Using this port, I can connect the nodes. To demonstrate, I will copy this node and paste it nearby. I can draw a connector from this port and connect the nearby node. Next, I will show you how to create a port dynamically with a button click. To demonstrate this, I remove the ports property from the node defined here. I'm going to use the Syncfusion Angular button component. So, I install the Syncfusion Angular buttons package by running the command ng-add Syncfusion EJ2 Angular buttons. In the app module file, you can see the button module is automatically imported from the Syncfusion EJ2 Angular buttons package and injected into the imports array of the ng module. I add the button component by defining the EJS button attribute with the content add port. As I said before, I want to add a port to the node when a button is clicked, so I add the event click with the event handler add port. I define the add port method in the app component TS file. To access the diagram's built-in method, I add a reference to the diagram component. To create the instance, I first need to import the viewChild directive from the Angular core package. Then, using the viewChild directive, I define the variable diagram object to create the diagram instance. I call the addPorts method using the diagram instance, where I pass the node details by providing its index as 0 in the nodes collection, and the port settings defined here. In the app component CSS file, I add the margin style for the button to align it. When I click the Add Port button, a port is added to the node. Let me show you how to remove a port from the node dynamically. First, I add the ports property in the node. Then, I add another button with the content remove port. I also add the click event callback method name to remove port. I define this method to include the remove logic here. I call the remove ports method using the diagram instance, where I pass the node's details by providing its index as 0 in the nodes collection, and the port settings defined here. When I click the Remove Port button, the port in the node is removed. Next, I will show you how to customize a port offset dynamically using a button click. Here, multiple ports are displayed with different offset values in a single node. First, I add another button with the content update port. I change this click event callback method to update port. Here I define the update port method and update the position of the port by specifying the port index to 0 and setting the offset properties x and y values to 1. At last, I call the databind method to apply the changes to the component. When I click the update port button, you can see the position of the port has changed. By default, a port is displayed at the center with respect to the offset position. That is, both the horizontal and vertical alignments are center. The diagram also supports combinations of right, left, top and bottom positions. Here the port is displayed with different horizontal and vertical alignments with an offset of 0, 0. To set a bottom right position with the offset 0, 0, I change the offset property to 0, 0 in the port settings, the horizontal alignment property to right, and the vertical alignment property to the bottom. The port is now displayed in the bottom right position with the offset 0, 0. Next, you will see how to customize the appearance of the port. I add the style property and set the fill property to orange and stroke width to 2. I also set the port height and width to 15 pixels. Checking now, the port appearance is customized. Let's see how to change the port shapes. The default shape of a port is square. The angular diagram also supports circle, cross, and custom shapes. I will show you how to set a custom shape. I add the shape property and set its value to custom. To render a star-shaped port, I set the appropriate value to the path data property. Now, the custom-shaped port renders. Now let's see how to add multiple ports programmatically. In the port settings, I add more ports with appropriate ID and offset values. Checking now, multiple ports have been added to the node. Finally, I will show you how to draw a connection between two nodes using the port. To demonstrate, I add one more node with the appropriate ID and style to the nodes collection. I am going to connect these two nodes by drawing a connector from the port of the first node. So, in the first node's port settings, I will keep only one port with ID, port 4, and comment out the other ports. Then add the constraints property and set the draw option in order to connect the nodes by drawing. Now, I can draw a connector from the port and connect the second node. Next, to establish the port connection in the node, I set the constraints to default along with draw. When I move the first node, the connection remains in the same port point. Also, the first node port connection remains fixed as I change the position of the second node. However, the connector's position and shape change when the second node is moved based on the shortest distance between the two nodes. Let's see how to draw a connection between two ports. I define a port for the second node with port settings defined for the existing node. Then in the port settings, I uncomment the port with ID, port 5. When I draw a connection from node 1 to node 2, the port connection remains the same when I move any one of the nodes. I will explain the other constraints in detail in my upcoming video. In this video, you have seen how to create a port programmatically and dynamically. You have also learned how to create multiple ports and update their properties dynamically. Additionally, you've seen how to position ports, customize their appearance, and draw connectors. You can download a working example of this from the GitHub link in the description for this video. I've also included a link where you can see if you're eligible for our community license, which will provide you with a free license key to use our products. Thank you for watching. If you found this video useful, give it a like and subscribe to our channel.